Guess what? This is Deepak again. You soon will get fed up of me, but as I said, I don't want to miss this opportunity. I'm here with some wonderful people at the Society for Consciousness Studies, a conference happening at Yale. And with me right now is Dr. Jeffery Martin. You'll soon be reading my book, Meta-Human, and it starts with some of Dr. Martin's work. He's got a book called The Finders, which I read, and that's what inspired me to include some of Jeffrey's work in the beginning part of Meta-Human as well. So you were at Harvard at one time, right? Tell us a little bit about your background, Jeffrey.
My background starts from the media, and then goes to computers, and then to business and entrepreneurship, and then to me being not that happy, having had a successful career in entrepreneurship and trying to figure out what I could do to get happier, and really just completely changing my life, going back to school, going to CIS, going to Harvard, and asking myself, can I find the people who are the happiest people on earth, and can I become one of them? So that's where all this comes from.
And so what did you find?
I found that people who reported things like enlightenment, non-duality, persistent mystical experience, we have over 200, close to 300 terms at this point cataloged for it, all around the world, reported these extraordinary levels, very different type of well-being than the rest of the population. And ultimately we found that it was quite achievable.
So how do you define this interesting perennial aspiration of humanity to find out who they really are? What is enlightenment?
Enlightenment one way to think about it in relation to that question is probably not caring who you really are anymore.
That's beautifully said.
You know, and so these existential questions and these existential angst that people experience and that I experienced, they just seem to go away with the transition to what we call fundamental well-being in the book. It's just sort of a catch-all terms that we don't have to talk about 200 different terms for this all around the world. And so, I think it's very simple. To me, from a brain science standpoint, it seems to be a rewiring in the network. We had Zoran Yusufovic yesterday speaking here, who really wrote the foundational paper on that and really identified that there was some very core rewiring happening in the brain in these types of folks. And so when that happens, frankly, just somewhat miraculous things seem to occur within your subjective experience. You go from having a baseline of psychology that feels like it's never really happy, like there's just sort of this itching, fundamentally, discontent sort of approach to the world, which is standard for animals. I mean, every animal should have that because they're not at the top of the food chain, and they have to survive, right? But for us, I mean, are you worried right now that you might not survive? Are you worried about somebody bursting into this room or starving before you make it to the next berry bush?
There is old age, there is infirmity, there's death. We have to deal with those things too. But what you're saying is when it goes away when you find who you really are beyond mind, body, and experience of the world. Yeah. So you found in your Finders course, and you used many techniques including mantra meditation, reflection, mindful awareness. And there were some people who spontaneously had an awakening. A lot of people did various traditional contemplative techniques and meditation. But you found people in different locations on this journey from self to self. So,
exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about these locations?
Absolutely. So the first part of the research was us just trying to get our arms around this phenomena and what people were reporting. And I thought we were going to find that it was psychopathological, that these people were deceptive or self-deceptive. It just sounded too good to be true, right? But we didn't find any of that. And so as we began to explore this population around the world, we began to see that there were different types of the experience. And that's what we call locations, because I don't like levels. I don't like to say, that person's in level 1 and this is level 2. And one thing that's interesting about these types is that they seem appropriate to someone's, someone might be more appropriate for their life to be in
Stage of
location
life,
1 than location 2, for example. Or
So what are these
whatever.
locations? So just
Absolutely.
briefly.
So the main thing that happens with location 1 is a transition away from that fundamental sense of discontentment to a feeling that things are fundamentally okay. And in location 1, it can be very much in the background. So if your spouse comes home and says, I'm leaving, I'm taking the kids, I'm taking everything you own, right? It's not that you won't have emotional upset, but you can sort of pause in the middle of that and look down to the base of your psychology, and paradoxically, everything will seem fine. And you'll be like, well, what, then there'll be a little cognitive dissonance, right? Because on the other hand, wait a minute, I could be about to lose everything, but somehow everything is still fine,
Okay.
right? There's negative thoughts and emotions drop off much more rapidly. There's a quieting of the self-referential thinking, which is sort of that chatter in your head that's generally negative in most people's heads. I often say, if I were to take that voice in your head and transplant that into someone else's body, how long would you want to be stuck in an elevator with that person, right? And of course, we're actually stuck with it in our heads for the average person, right, all of our lives, right? So that starts to go away. In location 2, there's a shift to something called non-duality, which you talk a lot about, so your audience is, I'm sure, very familiar with that. So non-duality really enters at location 2, and that's the big hallmark of that.
I noticed as I was going through your work, and please check out this book, The Finders by Dr. Jeffery Martin, that you spoke about 5 very distinct areas where there is a shift.
Yeah.
Perception, cognition, memory, emotions, and sense of self, right?
Exactly.
Am I describing them accurately? So everything shifts. Perception gets clearer, cognition, more clarity, in quieter mind.
Absolutely.
And then sense of identity from me to we to oneness. And memory is sharper, but you're not victimized by it. And emotions kind of move in the direction of joy and equanimity and love. Is that a fairly accurate description?
It is, up through location 3. Location 3 is sort of the classic end of the Abrahamic mystical traditions,
Correct.
where you have that union with love and that union with the divine and all of that, which we think is subtly dual again. And so we think it goes dual, non-dual, dual again. Because how could you be in union with something out there if it's all one thing?
Correct.
But then in location 4, there's a big change, and love goes away. For location 4, emotions go away, sense of agency that you can.
Don't be scared.
No, yeah, it's higher well-being in each location than the last.
It's a different kind of love. As I was quoting Nisargadatta yesterday, my love radiates from me like light from a bonfire, denied to none, focused on none, just love.
Right, and I would put that at past location 4, which is sort of, I think, a transitionary stage more than anything, to more of a location 5, where that type of love can return, and then that's a great description of it.
Beautiful.
Location 5. Yeah.
Check out the book, The Finders, Dr. Jeffery Martin, and thanks. Probably won't bother you again today.